we're back, baby. Horns up, talking Texas podcast. Fisher DeSopoulos, DJ, Nikki Snacks Crider, the Quan Cosby. Those listening on ESPN 102.7 Austin, what up? Happy game day once again. The Texas Longhorns' first year in the SEC, and we're in the SEC championship.
More appearances than A&M.
They'll hate more appearances than Ole Miss. They'll hate on our schedule. They'll say we had a cupcake schedule. At the end of the day, the bottom tier SEC teams that we beat those top tier SEC teams. The Texas Longhorns.
They're still trying to put freaking Alabama in the damn champion.
I texted y'all that. I texted no, stop. I texted y'all that, and you guys all. I think all three of y'all said I was crazy. I just got a nah. Just a one-word nah from Quan. And then Nick said, no way. And then here we are. That's what they do, but they try to put them in. And the best, I think Toss said it the other day, SMU loses, they're staying in. Clemson automatically gets the bid. And that's our best chance for Alabama to be out.
We need Boise State to win as well.
Well,
yeah.
What we also need Penn State to win, which that's the one I feel the least good about. I think Ohio State had a better chance, even though they lost to Michigan. But anyone to get it just makes no sense. I mean, they should be number 15 maybe, but the fact that they're still number 11, I have no words for it.
Yeah, I mean, it's called name brand football. They want them in the playoffs. Kalen DeBoer getting bailed out. I mean, if Boise State lose, but I think the committee said they're not going to penalize teams. Well, who knows what they'll go on their word, but they're not going to penalize teams for losing in their conference championship. So if a team like Boise State loses, I don't think they're going to get penalized.
I don't think that's necessarily the right interpretation of it. I mean, if you're just reading, you're giving me a look, but like you're saying, if Boise State loses to UNLV, they're going to put them in still. Like maybe if Penn State or Oregon or us or Georgia or, maybe even SMU, if they lose, they're still staying in. But if Boise State loses, they're not.
Boise State's a group of 5. They're not a power 5. So
I know, but they're going to drop them like 10 spots. I just don't see that happening.
Not 10 spots, but maybe 3 spots, 4 spots, which would knock them out.
They're number 8. They'll go to like 14.
They're number 8 right now?
Or Boise, where's Boise?
I think
they're 10. They're 10.
Oh, gosh. 3 spots is easy.
Yeah. They're gone.
And not to mention that one of Iowa State and Arizona State are going to have to jump in there because they're 15-16 right now.
Yeah.
Right. My face was to you making that statement if you were not talking about the Power 4. Because
I mean, obviously, like we know that the 1, 2, the 3, the 4, those guys are locked in. Penn State's in. Oregon's in. Georgia's in. Texas is in.
I think SMU is in as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think they're in as well. But
SMU loses, I think they're out.
Look, based off of what Ward Manuel said on the show, and I don't think he comes out, the chairman of the committee, I don't think he says something unless it's going to be concrete. Because if he says something and then he goes back on his word, then they're presenting a duplicitous committee, and I don't think that's a good look for them, right? He said that no conference championship game was going to in a negative impact for those teams. So if he like we're saying with the Boise State thing, I think everybody has an understanding the implications of that game are a little bit bigger for them because they are a group of 5 team. But to me, that signals that SMU's in no matter what.
I agree. And
SMU's number 9, right?
8.
8. We'll see.
Whether it should or shouldn't is a different conversation. But I think what they've said is that it will not. I mean, to me, if SMU loses, they play Clemson. If they lose to Clemson, to me, then and I'm South Carolina, I'm like, well, what the heck is going on? Because they
lose
Clemson
by 2 touchdowns to Clemson. Again, we shall see. I get what you're saying, but at number 9, losing by 2 touchdowns when.
I'm not even saying. I'm just repeating. Really, like you know.
Was duplicitous your SAT word? You just back pocket that one. That was a serious word. I was like, I did a double take. Gun to my head, I could not spell that word, by the way, but I can spell victory. And we had a massive victory last Saturday. as per usual. You were boots on the ground. If we were playing a big game in Alaska, you'd be there. What was
100%.
the
before.
vibe? What was the vibe like in Aggie Land?
I will give him this. Starting with tailgating. I actually watched the earlier games on what they call their North Gate, and it was actually pretty cool. They had some great TVs out. The weather was unbelievable. Lots of mixed burnt orange. I was a little worried with the crowd, and it was dumb because they were cool. I'll give them that. They were actually pretty chill, similar to the Michigan game. And the only reason I was truly worried is because it's been so long. They did have some FUT, or as they would call us, TU chance, but I don't care about that. Tailgating was phenomenal, if I'm being honest, other than the service. And then the game happened, man. Their intro, they like it, by the way, and they should. It's pretty cool. That place is insanely loud. And the irony of it all is it could, and at times, be a big force as they want to think the conceptual 12th man can be. The the funny thing is, it's not that loud all the time because they're too busy doing those dumbass chants and stuff. Like if they cut back on some of the like wavy stuff and all of that, because when you're doing those things, it's not that loud. And then you add a factor in that their DJ is playing the music till 4 seconds and all of this. It's just a wild deal. There's a phenomenal aspect to it, but there's also some things that you're just like, yeah, this is why you're kind of a little brother, because you just it's you haven't figured out. And the elephant in the room is this. All that they talked about, you saw one of their linemen give us some great bulletin board material. Oh, wait till they get the 12th man. I hate to be Texas. Bro, they lose like 2 or 3 games a year in College Station. So is the 12th man really that big of a deal?
No.
So it was awesome, man. It ended up getting pretty exciting at the end. But even though I've given my colleagues kind of a grace period of a week before I talk a lot of crap, only them, it was as sweet as any wing we have had this year, because we know what we would have heard with them having 13 years of backed up pain and being pissed off after Justin Tucker.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, because you and I were both at the Michigan game. How did it compare to the volume of Michigan in that first quarter that we experienced?
It was similar, man. It's just so different, because what's also fascinating about it is I played in Old Kyle Field. Old Kyle Field kind of went straight up. And so it actually, I mean, it was on top of you, dude. It felt like it was rocking. This one's great. It's a great looking stadium, but it's a little more engineered out. And so it's loud. The towels are cool, but once you've seen it, you've seen it. And waving towels, like Pittsburgh does it. Pittsburgh does it, but their stadium's 75,000, and those people are insane.
Mm-hmm.
They're screaming, yelling, and all the above playing in Heinz Field. A&M does it. It looks cool for a photo, but waving a towel does nothing for the team you're playing. And so it was loud, and that's kind of my point. If the fan focused on being that loud like Michigan did for as long as they could, I think it would matter more, versus that place was insane for about 5 minutes. And then they're kind of, maybe it's PTSD, but they're not. It's not overwhelming. I think Kirk Herbstreit and those guys said it on the video we've all seen when they're talking about college. It's just not intimidating.
Mm.
Yeah, and I don't mean that in because we won way. I mean, we won a lot at Kyle Field. And it's just not. And by the way, when I played, I'm not sure DKR was very intimidating.
No, it's changed quite a bit since even we were there.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Oh, I mean, guys have come back and they're like, oh, crap, DKR matters. We know what the Alabama players said when they played here, what the LSU players said when they played there. And they go,
yeah,
man, and they've also played at Kyle Field.
Yeah, DKR, I remember when we were in school, they hadn't yet put the new end zone in there with the Longhorn and built in more seats. Obviously, it feels good to have more of a bowl, obviously, like having that open layout. You let sound out. But I remember too being a student sometimes and remembering how it wasn't as hype as it should be, right? Like
Oh,
they
yeah.
weren't playing party music. There weren't like LED lights going on, like people really weren't standing up that much. Now you see that. Now they're trying to do some crowd control. They're really trying to get the fans into it, and it's rowdy. I was in Texas this past Thanksgiving break, and I was visiting with one of my buddies who went to A&M, who actually ended up going to the game on Saturday, Brent Ellerby. And Brent basically said that he was like, it was loud, but like I was expecting way more. And he's an A&M guy, and he's like, I was a little disappointed in how not loud it was.
Well, let me ask you guys this. I'm not saying there's no such thing as home field advantage, but Georgia came into our place, wasn't intimidated, took care of business. Alabama went to LSU this year, wasn't intimidated, smacked them upside the head. We went to Alabama last year. Michigan, who was, by the way, not a good football team, went into the number 2 team in the nation, ready to go to the Big Ten, all but making their plans to go to Lucas Oil. Flights ready, players ready to go to Lucas Oil. They're not going anymore because their place wasn't that intimidating. That's the second time in a row they've won at Ohio State, by the way. So, yes, it's a factor, but it's not the end-all, be-all. And we're seeing the best team on that day this season comes out and wins. And that's something we've been discussing all year. The parity in this league is crazy because the best team, whoever's playing best, is going to come out victorious.
You can take it to the NFL level. Seattle, the 12th man, they do the same thing. No, fool, you had nothing but Pro Bowlers on that team. It was not. Listen, you love your crowd and you love the energy, and it can add to it. But the crowd is not making plays. You know what I mean? The crowd, I promise you, I heard him say it. There's some of in the student section said they could have gotten 1 yard, but that defense is real, and that's what it really boiled down to. And I would even argue, if the crowd was such a big difference, I feel like Elko would have made better decisions. When you had opportunities to get the one, to keep the crowd in it, to get them fired up, to close in on the score, make that decision so your crowd stays crazy. So that is another factor. You get stopped on 4th down 3 times, they're going to be sitting on their hands. There's nothing to scream about. So it's just interesting because no coach or no situation makes decisions other than maybe overtime where you go to the student sections and stuff like that, but they don't make decisions because of the crowd for the most part. So I go back to that week. I go back to even certain levels of us talking about it, and certainly their team, they keep depending, and I will say this, they keep depending on that 12th man. That 12th man even got us a first down. So, but that guy was still on the field and we got a first down on a 4th and short. And so it was fun. I cannot argue that it was fun, but so much of that had to do with the way the game went. And I will say the Longhorns that did show up. Now I will say what's different than Michigan. We had 25,000 people in Michigan. I think you were threatened as an Aggie if you gave up your ticket to a Longhorn, because it's mandated to give up 5,000. I don't know that we had 5,200 people in there.
Wow.
We all see the pictures of the one guy standing
exactly.
in the middle of Aggies. That was the case. The most I counted in any of the Aggie areas was 3. And there was one guy here, 2, ladies there, 3 people there, and it was a sprinkle of 1. And some upper deck areas did not have 1 speck of burnt orange. So kudos there, which also honestly adds to our point. You had all your people there. You blocked us out pretty good. We had another 40,000 probably out in tailgating with other family members, but it was great. It just wasn't intimidating.
Yeah, that kid in the Home Depot hat who you're talking about, I think CDC should give him free tickets for the next year.
I've seen 3 different kids though that were all in that same
Give
situation.
them free tickets. Yeah. I think for next year, 100% to what I think CDC steps. Like you go into battle like that for the Horns. Like he was like one guy in a sea of Aggies. It was amazing.
Again, but that's also my point. He's sitting there not bothered, and they're doing their wave all around him, and he's just like, okay, y'all do y'all's little goofy stuff, and we're just going to keep leading and scoring on y'all and having the best defense. And they seem to be more concerned about the goofiness of their stuff than they are with winning football games. That it seems like even at the football game, milkman uniform guys are more popular than the people on the field.
They really are.
You know what I'm saying?
I mean,
Yeah,
they dedicate
it's
the game to them, and they dedicate the night before to them.
yes,
Midnight
that's
yell.
not a formula for
it's campy.
championships.
It's very campy. Like it's very like kumbaya
No, they
around the
call it like it is.
bonfire.
It's culty.
Yeah, that's like the nice version of that. Yes, it's very culty and very strange and very weird. Let me ask you this, Q, though. As an offensive player, when you're on the sidelines, like what's going through your head on that like fourth down? The one where Burke gets to stop at the end. Like you can't do obviously you can't do anything. You're sitting there. Like what's going through your mind as an offensive player watching your defense try to make a stand?
Couple. That's a great question. For real, you're certainly A&M was a top 10 red zone offense. So you're like, listen, our defense is ballers, and we love them. And can they do it? Sure, but everything about all the numbers say A&M is probably going to score. So you just get in the right mindset. You're looking at the time. You're seeing how much you have left. Do they have to, for me, especially because I'm on the hands team, are they going to kick a, onside kick? I'm a return man. So am I going to think about that? So I'm probably getting in special teams mode. And then as a offensive player, depending on the flow of the game, I'm getting ready to block because Wisner's getting 8 yards of pop on them. And then we can run the clock out and go do what we need to do. And so it just depends on the flow. But if I'm in the, empathetically on that sideline at that moment, secure the ball, whether it's onside kick or the weird kickoff rules that we're dealing with now, and then go make a play. And if we get on third down, it's money time. That first down could probably win us a game.
Yeah.
By 3, 10, or 17 or whatever it is, looking for the different scenarios and almost proactively thinking about them and making sure I was ready to go get her done.
Are any of the
Nice.
coaches on the sideline saying, oh, they're under center. If they give the ball to the back here, they're doing us a favor? Because that's what I'm saying on my couch as I'm watching it.
I was just hoping there was no tush push.
I did think they were going to do that, to be honest, with Green. With Reed. I thought there was going to be a tush push, but I will say this. The reason they didn't call tush push because that middle of their line got absolutely demolished all day. And so Broughton was a man amongst boys. Me personally, I don't understand for the life of me why people aren't doing RPOs in that. You're on the 1 or 2 yard line. You have that leeway with your offensive lineman. There's typically a pretty quick play. So fake a handoff, use his legs, have a tight end, bro. There's so many levels of things. I go back to the Georgia Tech game, and I was so frustrated. I've never been so frustrated at 2-point plays in my life. And so, yeah, I would have given myself more options knowing all that's going on.
Yeah.
Last case, throw the damn ball up. You're potentially going to get a PI. It's just so many things I probably would have considered. And no, they decided that was called believing their own BS because they made what we say. Oh, look at the schedule. Look at the schedule. The defense is number one because they haven't played anybody. No, y'all are full of cock. Even when we played Georgia, they had less than 300 yards. So it was, in my opinion, that was Elko's ego. That was ego, not Elko. But it worked out for us because, yeah, bro, as you figure it out, even though the first 2 times, this defense is for real. And it was cool. What a fitting freaking way to get it done and finish that game.
Yeah.
In the Kyle Field, 12th man, all that gibberish.
Yeah, I mean, like we saw people big out there, the more physical team. When push came to shove, like the biggest plays are made in physicality by us, and then physicality is quickly measured by running the football. And we ran wild on them. Like Trey Wisner, like I'm not going to say retire 26. I'm not going to drink the Kool-Aid that much, but I'm getting close, baby. I did say that. I said it last show. Retire 26. He was amazing. Like that. And I'll go to the Georgia game. T, I'll start with you because one of your big sentiments is, how teams progress throughout the year and the different teams we're seeing. And I want to hopefully think that that's the case for us and our identities changed a lot. Wisner ran 15 for 52 against Georgia. but these past 2 games he's been running wild. Do you believe that this is the identity we're going to show against Georgia and Atlanta this weekend?
Absolutely. I think it's what we've relied on the last 2 weeks, and he ran fantastically, but the push that our offensive line was getting off the jump was incredible. I mean, oftentimes he wasn't being touched until he got 4 or 5 yards past the line of scrimmage, and his contact balance and the way that he can fight through and find holes, then he's getting an extra 3 or 4 and you're getting 8 or 9 on first down. Okay. Yeah. Playbook open big time, right? Then we can do whatever we want. I think, not to mention in that Georgia game, Trey Wisner also went down. He got hurt in that game too. So he wasn't at full health. I think that's become, over the last 2 weeks, the bread and butter of this offense, and everything, especially with Quinn's injury that he's still nursing. And you could tell even on the scampers that he had in that game. Super happy personally that he was willing to sacrifice for his team in that way and tuck the ball and run on multiple opportunities where he converted on third. And that one, I thought he, if he had trusted his blocker there on the outside, if it was Quan Cosby blocking for him, he would have said, "Oh, I'm good to go. I can take this all the way to the house." Because then everybody would have been like, "Whoa, Quinn Ewers is hurt, but he just ran for a 6-yard touchdown. Let's go." I think that, yeah, we're going to run the football, and we're going to try and run the football in a way that we didn't. And we're going to try and take care of the football in a way that we didn't in that first matchup against Georgia. Certainly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then, Q, you brought up the Georgia Tech game. I know we were all stoked for that Arch package. Nick, do you think that's going to be something we see in this game as well? Just want to throw it out there. Haynes King, the quarterback for Georgia Tech, ran for over 100 yards against Georgia.
I think that, and Haynes is pretty athletic. He's an East Texas kid. Used to be on the Aggies. I actually talked to some Aggies about that. I was like, if he'd have won that game, he's like, oh, it would just been added to insult if y'all beat us. And I was like, yeah, I think y'all need to focus on this one. But no, how do you not, right? It was a change of pace. People have to prepare for it. It makes Arch happy. He adds that, jolt of Quinn did his thing too. He threw some great balls in there and played a great game and used his legs, but just that package. And we haven't even seen him throw out of it yet, right? We know Arch can throw. So what you have to do and prepare for, by the way, what we forget, it also made A&M call a timeout because they're like, crap, let's do this. And so all of that happens. You have to continue to do it. And it's a productive, deal for you. His toughness, grit. So I think that's in for the long haul. I think it's been talked about and honestly worked on for several weeks. And it worked out perfectly on a 4th down play where we needed it. And I think that's how we're going to go the rest of these, this SEC championship and playoffs.
Yeah, so many things come to mind in that package. They do call that timeout, and then we end up pulling Arch back and then running with Quinn and then scoring. So that worked out perfectly. But in my opinion, I mean, that's so reminiscent of when Chris Leak was on Florida and they ran out Tebow for those packages, right? And they had him in there for running situations, and every now and then, throwing it adds just another dimension to the game that the other team has to prepare for. And at the same time, too, like, just because he's a backup quarterback doesn't mean he's not a vocal leader in the locker room, too. So getting out there, getting people amped, when he scores a touchdown, he comes to the sideline, like he's ready for war. Like that's a jolt of energy that you give to your sideline, to your teammates, and to the crowd, too. We see it every single time he gets in the game. The home crowd is always, up in arms, with joy. Like, it's just another jolt of energy that we get to inject into the Longhorn life. So there's so many things in that situation.
That's such a fascinating thing that you say that. Now that I think back, here Quinn is dicing them up like crazy, especially at that point. He's thrown the ball pretty well. A&M had a little bit of a surge, they thought, but Quinn was playing pretty well at that point. And yet when they saw Arch, I think I heard, because we weren't too far from the student sections, in all shucks. and I bust out laughing and I'm like, yeah. And then he does that and they're just like, okay, yeah, this is a little bit different team. because they went in. We talked about how crazy they were at the beginning. They actually believe. They believe Kyle Field is the hardest place on the planet to play. They believe it. As you know, the data doesn't support it, but they believe it, and they know they're crazy, and they show up. But when that happened, it was the start of, other than the pick six, it was things were on mute. It just wasn't. And what that meant for the team and his swag and all the above, that package is a problem for those that were playing, and what he can do back there with being young and not Quinn's expectations on how to truly run the offense, but run your package, I think is brilliant. And I think it's gonna do pretty good as we keep this thing going.
And one more thing too on that. No matter how many plays he ends up getting in that package in this SEC championship game and in the college football playoff, that's still valuable experience that he gets to take with him for next year, saying that he had played in the SEC championship, he had played in the college football playoff. So
as he go to Columbus and he goes to Athens, these atmosphere is going to be very similar.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't want to say on the Arch thing, we hadn't really seen him unless things were going poorly. Like, he came in to give Quinn a blow in the Georgia game. He obviously subbed in for Quinn when he was hurt and played those games. Was our starting quarterback. This is kind of like really one of the first times in a big game, like you're saying, Q, when he's dealing and Ewers is playing his best ball in the game. It's like, oh, wait a second. No, we were prepared for this, and we're just deploying this package now. And obviously Kirby Smart and Elko too, but Kirby Smart is, one of the best, if not the best defensive mind in college football currently. But that's just a totally other element that he now has to prepare for. Because when we're in the red zone and you have a real dual threat quarterback like that, a massive body like that can also throw and unleash it in the air, that's like 7 different kinds of smoke. So for this game, and hopefully we get to that point, because the big issue when we talked about the Georgia game last time, obviously taking care of the football is key. It's something they didn't do. We forced multiple turnovers on them. Although we lost the turnover battle, we forced multiple turnovers. They didn't have 300 yards like you guys are saying. Getting to that position is key for me. That was like the biggest issue. We got crushed in field position against the Georgia Bulldogs last time, especially in the first half. We have to get to a position where we're able to utilize Arch in that way and utilize that package. And I think, like you were saying, Toss, it's become our bread and butter. And Trey Wisner has really worked his way. And it's such a great, there's so many good stories on this team. You have Taft, who was a 0-star walk-on, is now one of the top safeties in the nation, one of our best defensive backs, one of our biggest leaders on the team. You have Trey Wisner, who it was Baxter, he goes down. It was Blue, right? It was probably Gibson, like him, 3A, 3B, the freshman. And Trey Wisner's just been absolutely the hot hand and taking care of every one of his opportunities and has entrenched himself as our starting running back and our running back one. And all of a sudden, the narrative around the Texas Longhorns, it's all Quinn Ewers. We have to make Quinn beat us, because they're not going to be able to do anything in the run game. It's totally opened up our playbook because now our run game's a massive threat. Our guards had some of the best games they had all season last week.
What about Banks going down and us running for another 150 after that?
I mean, can we say that our line coaches are incredible?
Coach Flood.
Can we say Coach Flood is absolutely phenomenal? Because Gooseby came in, and you know what? How many group chats are we all in? Everyone was freaking out. At the end of the day, our best player on offense is Banks, right? He's our best player. And everyone's freaking out when he goes down. That's our left tackle. Not only are we going to have difficulty running the ball, passing becomes a huge issue. Gooseby comes in and we don't miss a beat. He has an excellent game. It quickly went from, is he okay? What's going on with Banks? Those texts immediately stopped because the offense didn't change. It was almost plug and play. We were talking about this the other day, Q, that offensive tackle who committed to OU. There's money involved and all that, and there's still the pedigree of OU and their lineman. Toss had said that. At the end of the day, if you're the top offensive lineman in this recruiting class, you probably want to step in and play right away. And now you're looking at the Texas Longhorns. You got Gooseby, probably going to play next year. You got Baker already, probably going to play next year. By the way, if Cam Williams decides to come back, you're not going to play unless someone goes down.
and he needs to look at it in a different way. Not only you still have Anthony Hill, you have Simmons, you got some dudes on that other side you have to face too that won't help your draft stock. And so I'm like, I want to get on their team so I don't have to face them. I mean, you think linemen were happy about having to face Brian Orakpo? No. And we have some guys on the other end, and you saw that. Aggie's line was decent before this. Our D line destroyed them. And then on the other end of it, like you said, our O line, they have NFL players on their D line, and they got a couple of sacks or something like that. It happens, especially when with the back end cover's pretty decent. But man, it was just, you don't hear a coach say this very often. And when Elko said we were annihilated on the lines of scrimmage, that's what's trending. And Sark co-signed. He said, since that Georgia game last time, I challenged the guys because we were beaten physically that game. We need to be more physical, similar to that, so that we can potentially play them again. And now the showdown's about to happen.
Yeah. I mean, and also you bring up the defensive line and dominating there. One guy who we haven't talked about pretty much all year, and ironically, this is the guy who he took over for was a guy we talked about a lot last year. We talked about Bo Davis a ton last year, as we should have. We lose Bo Davis. I remember that being a ping point for us. Like, oh no, how are you going to replace that production? I mean, Kenny Baker, man. Like, we didn't miss a beat. What Kenny Baker has come in and done for that defensive line, like he was really like, that was an amazing hire by our coach, by our Sark and our coaching staff in CDC. Like, that's an amazing hire. He was so, like, the Miami Dolphins. Yes, they lost Christian Wilkins. I mean, their defense is playing a bit better, but they had Tyler, who had 10 sacks last year. I just looked it up. Wilkins had 9 sacks in the interior, and he was the assistant defensive line coach for 11-6 wild card Miami Dolphins team. Like, that's an incredible hire by Sark. I'm sorry, like it has to be shouted out.
Yeah, I mean, and now we've got a guy like Alfred Collins, who wasn't supposed to be a first-round draft pick, who is now being mocked as a first-round draft pick, and Vernon Broughton being mocked as a second or third-round draft pick. And
game of his life.
Colin Simmons, who could be the freshman of the year. He's on the Sean Alexander freshman of the year watch list. So it ain't no coincidence.
But
and they have depth, man. I think we worried about that after losing
that's
a first rounder, 2 first rounders. No, was he first? My man, Big
1
Boy.
and 2. Sweat. He should have been a first rounder.
Yeah, he should have been first round. Sweat was like the first round and second. You lose that, and you're like, they're gonna have to rebuild. No, man, these cats they're reloading, and that's what you're seeing, and that's what you see when then you have a phenomenal, which we saw almost everybody and their mom lose their rivalry games, and we find a way to win it culturally. We lose first round guys, phenomenal guys on last year's roster. And if that game wasn't good enough, you follow it up by a signing day, signing the #1 class in the country. That's also what you gain with the D-line coach versus Bo, because Bo wasn't big on recruiting. And so that reload in the coaching staff is trickling down to the players and recruiting and the portal and all of that. It's just becoming a machine. And that all starts with Sark. It starts above them with the support and the resources, but Sark's ability to lead this organization like he has and embrace so many things. I love before he's like, hey, we're going to be the villain in College Station. Let's go get it. That's what I love playing on the road. I love being hated because it just added a little more fuel to it. And there's nothing like making them shut up. And we did. That's why we're all going, it was loud. It was cool, but not really. It was loud. Our band and our 5,200 was every bit as loud as their 105.
Yeah. Ultimately, this is what I kept thinking as we were just talking about the guys that are on our team and who stepped up. The difference is in the depth between the Texas Longhorns and the Texas A&M Aggies right now. And we'll see, 3 years into his tenure, how Elko can recruit, etc. But our depth across the board is why we are playing so great right now. Not to mention in tandem with the focus and preparation that when these guys get the opportunity to make a difference, they do. there is first round, second round level talent on the defensive line for Texas A&M, but those guys were out there every single snap. And at a certain point, our offensive line just wore them down. And
they started tapping out at the end too.
Yeah. And I think
I got a question for you, Toss, because you made a point. Maybe year 3, maybe year 4, Elko's getting it done. Let's just take away money. Both of our schools have no worry in that department. We finish that game. We win it. We have a number 1 recruiting class. 2, 3, 4. What changes 2, 3, 4 years down the road to help Elko get on that level?
He's not taking anyone from us. I'll tell you that.
Exactly. That's kind of my point.
Well, but we were talking about it earlier this week, and there are so many good players that come out of the state of Texas. Like, we're not going to bring in all 50 of the 4-star, like it's just there's more 4 stars than 50, but we're not going to bring in every single one of those guys. We've already seen that kids from Texas are going to Oregon, are going to Ohio State, are going to Michigan. And my point is, we'll see if Elko can compete for some of those guys that don't see the light, where they're like, okay, that burnt orange, it's going to look good on me. It's going to look good on the guys in the trenches next to me. And there's no reason, if I'm from the state of Texas, why I wouldn't go there if there's an availability from a position standpoint, because I want to go win and I want to play for a coach who understands what that winning mentality is in Sark. Like, the choice between the two is clear, obvious, and it's not changing. But there will be other guys, and he'll have an opportunity to get them, and we'll see. I mean, A&M has been a school that's recruited quite well, but they haven't dealt with us in the same conference.
I was about to say they did for 13 years.
Yeah,
but they haven't dealt with us in the same conference or an SMU in a Power 5. Or, I mean, there's other schools too. Yeah, and there's the Big 12. There's Deion Sanders in the mix. So that's why I asked. I was like, "What? Take away the resources, the NIL aspect. One, us head to head. That's going to be a problem for them. Then you add the SMUs. TCU, I feel like is going to rebound. Baylor had a heck of a second half. The Big 12 is still around. So and then SEC loves this state. And so does the Big 10. So it's just interesting to kind of think even long term. And they're talking about firing Colin Klein. So it seems I just think about it big picture, and it's fascinating, and especially after kind of being there, because I think this was a crazy year where their schedule. We talk about strength of schedule. They didn't see Tennessee, Georgia. They saw us. And South Carolina and Auburn, and lost to us.
Well, they got to win. Like, that's it. Like you're talking about, they got to win. Like, winning cures everything. And at the end of the day,
they got to win in November, especially.
Yes, they got to win when it counts. They can't finish 8-4 in a bad 8-4.
It can't be 7 wins, 8 wins, 9 wins. It's got to be a resounding season. But also, I think it's a mentality shift too, where they have to go after kids that want to play with the chip on their shoulder, right? Like, that want to be the type of kids that bring their program back to life, right? That inject new life into the program. Kind of what we were doing, in the 2018, 2019, 2020 era, right? Where it was all about like, be the team that brings Texas football back. Okay. Well, now we're back, and we're here to stay, hopefully. And I feel like A&M needs kids like that who want to make a change and not play like the big flashy mentality. Because I mean, it's not for everyone, like the Lambos and like it's not for everybody.
But that's it. They're delusional though, because the problem with A&M is they think they're a blue blood. But I'm with you, Nick. If they actually embrace the Gary Patterson, we're the chip, screw Texas, we're not this, we're small town guys, we're gritty, and right now, believe it or not, I think I saw a stat that says Texas's team is like 64% Texas kids, which is also fascinating because during our day it was like 90, and A&M is like 52%.
Yeah,
isn't that weird?
Yeah, but I will say everything.
I feel like it makes sense because at the end of the day, like, they're not winning the recruiting battle here in Texas, because you just mentioned you've got us, you've got Ohio State, and Oklahoma.
LSU.
Oklahoma's pretty much in state school.
Look who they've
got to do it in Arizona. They've got to get it done in California. They got to get it done in Nevada just to steal those kids away.
Yeah, look who also their head coach was and where his established pipelines were. He came through Florida, right? And then he takes the head coaching job in College Station, and that's, it's Jimbo Fisher, right? For what you're talking about, Quan, and what you're talking about, Nick. And
Jimbo
then I think,
Fisher was an Aggie, by the way.
right. But I think that Mike Elko represents more of what we're discussing as far as like the chip on their shoulder Texas kids. And we'll
Yeah, for
see
sure.
if I just think it's a better identity fit for that school and that university and everything I know about it.
I agree.
He did a
But
good job. Like, I think he did a good job.
I mean,
Like,
it's year one. I don't honestly.
Who, Elko or
Yeah, he was
Elko,
fine.
yeah, it's year
You're fine.
one. They went aim
listen, guys,
four.
we all agree. They did what he is. They did what they are. I mean, they are 8-4 for most of their life.
Yeah, but they
That's my
got
point, though. We're
scoring
trying to
though
get
in
over
the
the
transfer
hump.
portal. Like, they got guys in the transfer portal. I think he, like Toss is saying, like, he's the right guy. It just makes sense on who he is versus Jimbo Fisher, who brought in that flash that Nick is saying he doesn't like, and you're saying you don't like Q.
And then all of a sudden, those kids were like, "I don't want to be here." No, okay, of course you don't want to be here. And how many of them? 26 of them transferred or whatever it is. I think we should stop talking about this team though, because in the 3 years where he tries to figure it out, guess what? We're going to keep doing what we did to them last Saturday, and we're going to mop up on them. Now, the depth is the difference piece. We're playing a team who has the same, in my opinion, level of depth. And that's why the Georgia Bulldogs have been where they've been for the last 5 years with Kirby Smart there.
Yes. But like, I want to say, like, we had 8 guys we had 8 defensive linemen play on Saturday, 18 plus snaps. Like, we have that depth too. And I was looking at that Georgia team. They have a ton of first round talent, second round talent, third. They have NFL guys across the board. And guess what? Fortunately for Sark, like that, this is a massive test for him, in my opinion. You got beat by these guys, especially in the first half. He really took it to you in your home in your home place. Can you learn? Can you rebound? Can you adjust? And can you stick it to these guys? Can you stop Jalen Walker, who ruined your Saturday in October? Ruined the fan bases. That kid single-handedly ruined the fan bases Saturday.
And
like,
realistically,
can you stop him?
Both of these teams, as you talked about, and I like to point out, I like where teams finish as opposed to where they start, because teams week 2 are not often teams week 10 and not often teams at the end of the season, right? All 3 of those phases are different. Their offense has made less mistakes in the last 3 weeks. Carson Beck has turned it around a little bit, although I thought in that 8 overtimes against Georgia Tech, he was pretty pedestrian. And how many of those touchdowns?
He let him back, though.
He did. He threw for 3 touchdowns. He threw for 400 yards. That was mostly in the second half. I was watching him very closely in overtime, and I was not.
He's got a good goldfish memory, though. I'll say that.
Absolutely, and I think credit to Kirby Smart's coaching. He's never said once, "Hey Carson, I'm yanking you. You're not our guy right now." He's let him play through all the mistakes, but they've been less mistake prone in the last third of the season. We've been able to run the football in the last third of the season, so we've tightened the screws both of these teams, which I think makes this matchup even more exciting from my standpoint, because I think they annihilated us, to use Mike Elko's phrasing, in the first half of our first matchup against them. But I don't think that's going to happen in this game. I think both teams will look better than they did in that first matchup across the board.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, here's what I wonder, though. Georgia Tech, and I'm not saying they're a bad team. They had some good games this year, and they're a program that's turning it around a little bit. Georgia Tech put up 27 on them in regulation. Like, Steve Sarkisian can't do that. Like, Sark can't put up 27 on them. Because if it gets to the 30s again, I feel confident in us winning. Like, if the game goes over, I feel confident in us winning, because that means the offense is doing, what we're saying, and they've adjusted, and we've had our identity. Like, we can't put up 27 on these guys. Like, how Georgia Tech just did it. Like, I don't understand.
The way that I feel about it, I've almost, from where I was week 3 with our offense, I've kind of about-faced on how we should approach games, because early I was like, if we start scoring, we score early, nobody can catch us. Again, we've kind of changed our identity a little bit in the last 3 weeks here, and we're relying on our defense, which is an apex predator in college football right now. And the most inconsistent thing, and the thing that non-Texas Longhorn fans want to see from Texas, is Quinn Ewers try and take over the game. They don't believe he can consistently do that. They think, non-Texas fans, when Arch Manning comes in the game, they're like, oh, we're like A&M, we're screwed now. A lot of teams believe that our backup quarterback is better than our starting quarterback. We know the situation. We know that Quinn has to be taking majority of the snaps. We know he's the connector for our offense. But I think we kind of have to ride the hot hand, Wisner, and we have to trust our defense that they are going to make Carson Beck make mistakes. Carson Beck has some of the same, things that hold him back, just like Quinn. Neither of them are very mobile, and we did not force Carson Beck to be a runner in that first matchup. It was something we talked about pregame, but we did not force that. We have to force him to make plays.
He beat us on one play where he did. There was one play on third, but there was a big play on third down where he beat us with his legs. I agree, but there was one play where he.
I will say this though, it wasn't as much. Maybe Carson Beck was the problem there because he trusted his throwing ability too much that made him throw 3 picks. So he probably should have dropped the ball down and run a few of them, but he tried to hit a window versus a really good secondaries that he probably should not have. So it's not so much as we didn't force him to, because again, they didn't have crazy Madden numbers on offense. It's just a matter of we turned the ball over the wrong side of the field. And when he probably should have dropped it down and taken off, he threw a ball in there and it got picked off.
Yeah, I mean, if we're looking at the comparisons of how our defense played in that game versus the game at A&M, A&M put up 248 yards on us, and Georgia put up 283 yards. So a 19-yard discrepancy. Yeah. And what was the score differential, right? It was all about field position in that game. It was about turnovers, obviously, and it was about them just cashing in when we were giving them opportunities. I mean, Trevor Etienne had 3 touchdowns in that game, but, rushed for 87 yards. Like, that's respectable in, some games, but we know that our defense is usually better than that, and can hold good running backs and running quarterbacks to a low yardage. And that it's just, I don't think the score really reflects how we really played. Because if you look at the second half, as we all know, we outscored them, right? They scored 23 points to nothing in the first half against us, minus that one half of football, we're an undefeated team.
Yeah. Well, and that's actually a really good point, because how about this then? I think we went in, we knew the Beck hype. By the way, the kid's a good player. He's a good player. But let's make him prove that. We need to trust our secondary at a level that we make sure Etienne has 40 yards rushing versus 80 and 3 touches. And then we trust our back end and they go toe to toe with some really good players. And I think so. The evolution of that game in the way it started. Let's talk about the other aspect, though. They don't have 2 weeks to prepare for us. They threw a lot out of us that disguises and all of that we have film on. And so I just think I will say this. I still think it's going to be a slugfest. I wouldn't be surprised if it didn't go into freaking halftime 3-0 because of both defenses and how good they are, because Quinn's still a little gimpy, but, get some marks in there and mix it up. And these defenses are that good. And as crazy as our defense played then, I think they're better now because they're playing unbelievable versus the run. And the back end is playing man and still holding their own. So it's going to be interesting to see how we play it here. And I wouldn't be surprised if we were like, Georgia doesn't run the ball on us. Let's see if Beck can be that first overall pick and beat us through the air, because what we do know is when teams have stopped their runs, they've struggled. You take away our game, Georgia hasn't really blown a lot of people out. And I think a lot of people have stopped the run and then put it on. So the same thing they're saying about Quinn, in my opinion, needs to be thought of with Beck. And let's see which one from a defense and offensive standpoint can get it done.
Well, do you guys think inversely, though, like if they put it on Quinn, do you think Quinn can get it done? Because I think the sentiment, like we were talking about injury, but at a certain point, like you're either healthy or you're not. Like you got to come back or you're not. Like if you're good, I'm assuming he's good to go. And do we no longer think that we'll use Tas's via Bill Polian logic? Is he a guy we can win because of?
Yes.
Not win with. Win with, we know we can win with him.
Yes.
But can we win because of him? Do we really believe that right now?
That's always so hard to say because football's the ultimate team sport, right? Quinn and our receiving core and Gunnar Helm, hell yeah. But what happened in the first game is, I have a lot of time, and this is what we often talked about. We talked about it after that game. Quinn needs to do, and which he's done, How often since that game has he stepped in the pocket and hit a gutter ham late or hit a receiver late? And he did the mechanical things now that he didn't do in Georgia, which those guys went wide. Banks rode this dude 6 yards back. Quinn doesn't step up. He gets a toe. It's a 6.5-yard sack. So it's the little things like that, game of inches, that I think he can do. And I really still, if they're blitzing or they're doing some of that stuff, I think our receiving core is insanely hard to play man on.
I also want you guys to consider as well. I think personally, Quinn Ewers' best game of his career came against Oklahoma State in the conference championship last year. He threw for 452 yards, right? Another conference championship game. I think it's something. I'm not asking for that many yards,
Let's
Mr.
go.
Quinn Ewers.
Hey, I am. Let's go, Quinn. You
If
will
he's-
jump back if you throw for that this game.
Oh,
Dog.
easily, yeah. I mean, if this is his MO when he does it on the stage at the brightest, I'm so down for that. And I look on Quinn's behalf, I will say this: since the Vandy game, like the post Georgia game, he didn't throw an interception until that pick six. He got sacked 5 times against Georgia. He got sacked a total of 5 times in the Florida, Arkansas, Kentucky, and A&M game combined. So the adjustments after the Vandy game, which was a weird game on the road, Vandy had the hype. We were coming off that loss. That game looked closer than it was.
Was it
After
2
that-
sacks versus A&M?
One.
Well, that one sack was a running back's fault too. So I remember Blue
Yeah,
was
Blue.
back
Blue.
there.
He missed.
wrong.
He missed the
Yeah,
pickup.
he missed it.
Yeah.
So again, so that's a good point to make. That was actually the running back's fault. And Vandy was the same thing. Unfortunately, with Blue's phenomenal, made a great catch, catching the ball as well as anybody out of the freaking backfield. But pass protection is suspect right now.
Yeah. T, we'll start with you, then Q, then me, then Nick. You could give a key or maybe one thing you're looking for in this game specifically and give your game score. That's why you're going last, Nick. So T, then Q, then J, then Snacks. Give like your one key of the game or one thing you're looking for, and then give your score.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it is about Quinn and it's about him taking care of the football. I mean, I know like this is obviously something that we talk about a lot, especially pregame, especially in this situation where we're about to make predictions, but he can't turn the ball over in this game. And in that A&M game, we turned the ball over early again. And it's one of those situations where all I could do is sit next to the guys that I'm watching the game with and say, can you imagine being the defense? And it's the same thing I bring up every single time. It's like the best defense in the country, and they have the utmost confidence in themselves, and they know they're going to go out there and get it right back. But like, just give them a break, man. One time for him, Quinn. Come on. So no turnovers, and especially no turnovers on our own side. Get past the 50. And then if you have to make a play, I get it, right? And can we see for once no swatted balls at the line of scrimmage? For once, please. I know he's a shorter guy and I know he's not super mobile, but at a certain point, it's happening because you're not adjusting. You have to make an adjustment at that point.
Well, that's what the pick came from. That's what the pick six came from. They tipped it.
Tipped at the line of scrimmage, and then a guy makes a play. But don't just play unafraid for him like he did when he ran. There's nothing you can do about that slide. He's just not athletic enough to get the separation. That guy made a heck of a play, and he stripped it. Unbelievable play that guy made. But just play unafraid and play like your job depends on it. I mean, he needs to have a good game for us to make a good run in these playoffs and to go all the way. We need him.
Score.
I like
T?
that. I'll go ahead.
I agree with Quan. I think this is going to be a slugfest. I think this is going to be bruisers out there, and Trey Wisner might have another 30-plus carry game. Like we're going to need Jaden Blue. We're going to need him in this game too. We're going to need our wide receivers to be in sync with Quinn. We're going to need everybody to block well. I'm going to go with 20-13. Our defense makes a stop at the end and has a pick. And then we just kneel this thing out, but we do enough offensively. And Burt gets two easy ones, maybe between 30 and 40 yards. But we need him too
Who's
for
that?
the
I know
long
Curly.
ball. Yeah,
Jeez.
Curly. Yeah. God, that 48 yarder was brutal.
Oh, 20 to, give the ball back after halftime going in 20 spank. You know how big that? I mean, it worked out. It's hard not to, and we probably should all repeat it. No turnovers. I mean, that's in a nutshell what Todd said. That's such a big deal. That's why that lost you the game the first time. But I'll take it to another one. Explosive plays. I don't know that we saw a few of them in the second half, but we have really explosive players. You take care of the ball, you hit your layups, because we also in that game had a drop for a touchdown, and so that kid is no longer on. Or was that a different one? But anyways, explosive plays, and that could be, that could be out of the backfield with the RBs. Sark is phenomenal at the screen game. Get these receivers rolling. Golden, in my opinion, has been, one of the most consistent, but we got a healthy crew again, and every single one of them are capable. Let's utilize Gunnar Ham to slow that pass rush down. Bond is due. And so I think explosive plays. I think if we beat them in explosive plays after taking care of the ball, like Toss said, I think I'm going to bet on Curly to hit one 30-yarder, 24-21.
Okay. I'm going to go
Is that to seal it at the end right there?
No. Our defense is going to seal it. We're going to have
my pants.
We're going to have the game. We're going to be ahead, and our defense is going to do it for it.
I would literally piss myself, like on the spot in the bar. Like it would be, they bring out the mop, go to the pen. That would not. I mean, I don't think it's going to be obviously an easy game. They beat us last time, and that's just what happened, and we have to acknowledge that. And I think it's going to be incredibly tight, and I think they're going to come to play. And they're again, they've won the SEC championship multiple times. They've won multiple national championships in the last 5 years.
We're in Georgia.
Like this is a serious game. All that being said, I'm looking at a guy, Vernon Broughton, who, yes, Trey Wisner had the game of his life, but so did Vern. We were feeling the Vern, baby. And he was a non-factor in the Georgia game last time. Prove yourself as, not a one-hit wonder. Not that he has only had one hit, but continue that level of play and dominate like you dominated Texas A&M. You and Alfred Collins is the new 1-2 punch in that interior, combined with how well Trey Moore and Barron Sorrell, Burke, Simmons, and all these guys have been playing outside of you. I'm looking for him to have a massive game, and if he does that and he steps up, I think it's going to be a really tough day with them running the ball, and we're going to make it tough again on Carson Beck. So all that being said, I'm going to go 21-20. I think they cover, and I think it's a really hectic, unenjoyable Saturday for us, but we hopefully come out victorious.
Win's a win. Win's a win.
I mean, it's not going to be fun. It's not going to be a fun day. I just know for a fact.
As I'm sitting here listening to each and every one of you, have taken one of my score predictions. I've thought about it in my head. I'm like, oh, okay, maybe I'll go 21-20 in a crazy, game. Nope. Maybe I'll go 24-21. No, Toss was 20 to 13. Like that's another one. I'm gonna go 28-14. Screw it. They beat us by 2 scores. We're beating them by 2 scores. I think the key to the game is field position. Flip the field position. Yeah. When you go 3 and out or when you have to punt, let's get a good punt off, okay? Let's play a clean special teams game. Let's not turn the ball over on our own territory. Don't give them reasons to stay in the game because they didn't get many yards on us, as I just mentioned in a previous segment. The only teams that got more yards on us than them were Florida, Mississippi State, and Michigan got the same amount of yardage as them. And those are teams that we whooped. So by the standard of how our defense is played, we should be able to whoop this team if we have the right field position. So taking care of the ball on that end and bleed them out. Just continue to run the ball, as you guys are all saying, bleed that clock out, and let's wear their defense down. We made great adjustments in the second half last game against Georgia. Jalen Walker had 3 sacks. All 3 of those sacks came in the first half, okay? We know how to adjust against these guys, and I think our line will be ready to play, and I think Sark will game plan the right way.
All right.
28-14.
Love it. Love
baby.
it.
Those 2 turnovers that we had against the Aggies, they came after we had 5+ minute drives. So that was the one silver lining about it in our red zone, right? Obviously, you don't want to turn the ball over in your red zone. You never want to do that. But at least we had milked the clock enough to put us in a position where
they were dagger drives.
It put the pressure on them.
If you finish this. If you get 7, they will tap out. And we decided to give them life. But
Well, hopefully that doesn't happen again on Saturday. Looking forward to a great one in Hotlanta. Q. Enjoy the game. Fisher Desopoulos, DJ Nikki, Snacks Credit, the Quan, Cosby, those listening on ESPN 102.7. Thank you for joining us. Enjoy your game day. We'll see you guys later. We'll see you another time. Welcome.